Okay, so welcome everyone to the Data Science Working Group meeting for Tuesday, February 10th. We have a whole bunch of stuff on the agenda, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. But first, the question of the day is, what's something you'd like to do but haven't done yet? Oh, see the Northern Lights. That's a good one. I also would like to do that. Go to Italy. Italy's fun. You should do that. Okay, so feel free to go ahead and add your stuff there. The quick update on some of the practitioner guides. So the funding impact measurement guide is getting relatively close to being done. We had it in a pretty good state in December, and then we all went off for the holidays, and then we were all running things at FOSDEM and CHAOSScon, and we're just picking it back up now. I've sent it out to a couple of people to get feedback. So people are welcome to have a look, provide feedback. That would be great. That's where kind of where that guide is. I would say that it's probably go out in the next, I don't know, couple of weeks, hopefully, month, something like that. And then there's the usage, adoption, and popularity practitioner guide that Callie and I have been talking about. I wonder, Callie, maybe we should just set up some time and spend 30 minutes, 60 minutes on a Zoom call and kind of walk through how we want to do that.
Yeah, I'm also open to having like try to put like some discussion time in here as well for it because I kind of what my hope was for Chaos Con to have an open discussion around it ended up just kind of being like a free form discussion, which is fine. But like part of like I'd say my hold up on this is because I don't have the answers. I don't have that I haven't written the thoughts because I don't have the thoughts. And so trying to figure out maybe like how to like where to start building up to that is probably is where my biggest like hold up I think is more so
Okay.
than the like process of writing it.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So I will put that as a future agenda item for upcoming meeting. Um, cool. And then there's the research software impact, which Matt Germanprey has been working on. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly where that is. He's really busy this week with some other deliverables. So it looks like it's getting close to being done. I'll follow up with him again next week and see if we can get that one over the line because I think that one is probably, I think if he spends a few more minutes cleaning some stuff up, I think that one's probably also pretty close to ready to publish. Any questions on the practitioner guides? Okay, project updates. Ernest. I'm glad you made it. You're just in time for an update on the Foundation Stats project. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I'm late.
No
I had
worries.
network issues. So we were able to kick off the data collection, and we have about 4 contributors, if I'm not mistaken, that has added a few projects on the Apache. We have a page that we are using to track that in case anyone is interested in knowing what's the update on that front. I think about 30 something projects has been collected now. So I hope we can increase that momentum going forward. So that's really been the focus. So if we are like halfway through, then I'll start making sure the Eclipse data is ready as well. I think we can script that conveniently. It might just be from different places.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Feel free to add some links if you want to add some links to the notes later. Um, any other projects? I'll be honest, I've mostly stopped working on the orcs and relicensing project because I feel like I've done all of the research that was interesting to me to do on that, and it's been one of those projects that's just been hard to get anybody else involved. So I've kind of stopped working on that mostly. Um, so I don't really have an update on that project. I don't know there potential for some other research projects, so we'll talk about that later in the agenda. And I also wanted to mention, so Mary Blessing, since you're on the call, Mary Blessing and I talked a little bit about data science contributions. And Mary Blessing, I would suggest that maybe you look at some of the foundation stats work that Ernest and team have been working on, because that is a lot of it's a lot of tracking down data it's been a bit more manual, but it might be a good way to kind of learn some of the processes and get involved in a project without necessarily having a whole bunch of data science skills. Okay. Um, cool. Anything else on data science projects? Okay, cool. So Matt is here, and we talked in one of the um, past data science meetings about some of the commercial open source data that Matt's been working on. So I don't know, Matt, you want to give us kind of an update on where you are with that?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure. As you may recall, if you were in the last meeting, I founded an organization called the Commercial Open Source Startup Alliance, and as part of that, I have been the recipient of data troves that have been donated to me. Two in particular are the uh, are what are attempting to be uh, a canonical list of commercial open source companies. And I have two lists so far that have been contributed to me. One was the one that was the list that was used, the 800 companies that were used in the Linux Foundation study, the state of commercial open source. And the other one is a private list that JJ at OSS Capital has been maintaining. And it's another 800 or so companies. The really interesting thing is there's very little overlap except the obvious MongoDBs and Odoo's and things like that. I have these data and I have this data sitting in a coded database right now. Um, I and I expect to get additional data contributions, and this year's state of commercial open source study, that data will all be public. And so I've been looking for a place to put it. Um, Gerg at Bitergia had suggested that we start a working group. I came to this group, and they said, "You don't need to start a new working group; just work with us." And I think that's great. I think this starts as simple as Don's going to create a folder in the repo and I'm going to start uploading data and we'll see. No expectations other than a common place to hold it and maybe it takes off into something interesting.
Yeah, so what do we want to call that folder? Um, should we just keep it short to like COSS? Do you want like commercial
Let's
dash
start with costs. That's
OSS?
fine. Yeah, I think
Okay.
we can. That's broad enough that and different enough from anything else that chaos studies.
Does that sound good to everybody else?
I got a thumbs up from the train.
Okay. And I'll do that under the data sets area. Cool. And then you can just do pull requests to add the data and we can merge this for you.
Okay,
Anything else on the commercial open source data? I'm excited to get that started.
awesome.
Because I was telling Matt, we met, we talked yesterday actually. And I was telling him that I would be interested in maybe doing some research based on some of the commercial open source data, because it's something that I've always been really interested in how companies and organizations are working in and around open source projects. So it's kind of, yeah, I find it really interesting. All right. Um, Okay, so the next thing on the agenda, FOSDEM and CHAOSScon recaps. So a number of us were at CHAOSScon and FOSDEM, so I was just curious what some of you thought. What were some of your highlights, things that you found interesting?
Say overall, for the people who were not there, it was a pretty big shift from prior Chaos Cons in scale of we had multiple tracks, we had lunch, we had like just different communities having meetups, data meetups. I mean, it kind of had all sorts of new things and kind of I think there was a lot of different swings that were happening and a lot of different new things. And I think for the most part, they landed really well. There's definitely stuff to improve on in the next year, but yeah, it was cool to see how the event has grown. I don't know the exact number of attendees, but I think it was somewhere around 80, um, which is great. So yeah,
Yeah, and it was about what we could fit in the space, to be
yeah.
honest. So, and it was really nice having all of that space to be able to do breakouts and workshops and BOFs and things, which we haven't been able to do as much of in the past. So I really liked the new venue, and they seem to be interested in doing it with us again. So hopefully we can make that work next year.
Yeah, I think it was nice to see the audience was so diverse and like where people like you really didn't have like one I didn't feel like there was like one like whether it be academia or corporate or a specific like community that wants to do analysis, it just seemed like the audience was a huge mix of people that were coming at this in completely different ways, which I think is what makes CHAOSScon EU a special event. And so I'm glad that like that was what I took away with last year, and I think this capitalized on like that diversity.
Any other thoughts on ChaosCon? And then maybe we can talk about FOSDEM. We got a Sal, so Sal posted in chat, so she's on a train. She was impressed by the quality of the contributors, and I would 100% agree with that. I think that we had a lot of really interesting people working on interesting things in the room, and so I think it was yeah, it was great. I had a great time. Cool. And then other events past ChaosCon. I went to the OFE policy event. So it's the EU, basically the EU policy, open source policy event that the OFE does every year on Friday. Um, I will admit, so I wrote a blog post on it. I'll drop a link in the chat or something. But I was really impressed with that event this year. So last year, I will admit, I was kind of bored to death in that event. But I felt like I have to. I feel like it's important for me to go to some of these kind of events because I can hear the conversations that policymakers, governments, people at nonprofit organizations that aren't tech nonprofits, how they think about things, because I think that's important context to have. And so last year, all of the conversations were like, maybe we should use open source. Maybe this is good enough. Maybe, it was basically the conversations that I've been having since 2000 with people about why open source is okay to use. So that was really boring. And this year it completely turned around. So this year all of the conversations were really focused on digital sovereignty and how open source needs to be a key part of that strategy. And for that to work, they actually need to support maintainers and support projects and discussions about how this is a global effort and you really kind of need to fund the open source projects wherever it happens. It's not just like let's just fund the EU folks and it was really interesting. I really enjoyed that event this year because I feel like it was really just night and day from the conversations last year, which I think was really amazing progress in a year. So I think the EU's making good strides in that direction. And then go ahead, Callie.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that's a huge topic in general is the transition to digital sovereignty, especially in Europe, is a big conversation. And so it's cool to see that go across. It's something that like Red Hat, it's a huge thing for Red Hat because Red Hat's we're a platform company, and like hosting servers and things is kind of our thing. So it's cool to see that that is going on outside of just a platform company, because it's gonna feel pretty. it's going to feel very important from our vantage point, but I'm glad to see that that vantage point is not just limited there, and that people like for whatever reason, like for the reasons that caused this conversation, oh well, but at least that it's landing on an investment in open source, and that open source is a pivotal portion of sovereignty. Because I mean, I'm biased because I that's kind of always been my big shtick on open source. So of it being, if you ever needed to like reset up a electric grid, that's how I talk about it with like people who are not open source people. That I'm like, if we ever needed to, reestablish like technical infrastructure for a nation, things being more and more in the open source means that that lift is easier. And so I'm glad to see people seeing that before the major catastrophe that could happen where that is intimately necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was really interesting because there's a lot of mistrust of American tech companies in Europe, and one of the things so it's created kind of a crisis for the EU, frankly. And but it was interesting. I heard several of the speakers mentioned that you should never waste a good crisis, and basically using the geopolitical landscape as the push to do things that they wanted to do anyways. So that was kind of interesting, I thought. And then there was some good stuff at FOSDEM too. There was a funding dev room. I spent some time in that, and I thought some of the conversations there were really interesting. Funding for open source is one of those things that it's not as easy as it sounds. You can't just always throw money at things and make them better. And so I thought that came across pretty well in the funding dev room that it's complicated. It's not as easy as it sounds. But it's something that we really need to get better at. Any other thoughts from FOSDEM? I was just
So
looking at
I
the
just wanted, yeah, I was gonna like if we could pause for a second because I wanted to read Sal's because I'm very curious about the CRA stuff is such a big deal. Um, and yeah, because I think that the intersection between the CRA and the importance of community data analysis is pretty big. I mean, that's if we're going to talk about what is going on within Red Hat and regarding like where I perceive people's perceived value of this work to be the most from, the CRA is a big portion of that. And I've always been I've been pushing for a while, and so is Georg of talking about okay, if CRA is such a big thing, or we're trying to look at like what are the upstreams that are going into products, if you're looking at it from a company standpoint, can like how does that intertwine with SBOMs or doesn't intertwine with SBOMs because SBOMs don't have a agreed upon format or have a link to an upstream repository and how this all comes to be. And so I'll be very curious to hear more when you're not on a train, Sal, because there's like I'd say for like our team, like the three biggest like kind of pillars for what we're supposed to be doing this year. One of the sides portions of it is like it's generally quote unquote security analysis, but it has a lot to do with CRA. I would say that I think it's a pretty good signal that like Red Hat thinks that it's a big deal whenever I think there's gonna be 5 people added on to add to our team with the specific goal or like specific work around CRA. My team has 30 people. So that's a lot of people for a small team to be focused just on CRA. And so I think, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. And as Sal pointed out in chat, the Foundation Stats project can really kind of give people a baseline as we start to um, measure improvement as the CRA gets implemented and people start to actually learn what that means. Cool. Okay. Anything else on FOSDEM, CHAOSScon related events? Okay. Visualization notebooks.
Yeah, I just wanted to start throwing this conversation out here as with the move over of all of the resources from Rappel and the archival of Rappel and all of the notebooks that we've moved over. For some context where people aren't as familiar, these notebooks go to connect to an Augur database and to do analysis. The notebooks that were are kind of the most active, or what I see to be the like what I'm starting to try to push some focus onto is notebooks around making visualizations that would eventually go into 8 knot. So it's using Augur data, doing the pre-processing in Pandas, and then building a Plotly visualization. And so we're starting kind of the pipeline from idea to visualization in 8 knot, which this is, I'm saying this verbally, this is what my team's trying to work on to like really, for this isn't just, it's a checklist, and this checklist will go between 8 knot and this working group. And so that's why I wanted to start bringing this up, where right now a lot of them are actually starting off with chaos metrics models. Are the concept is a chaos metric model. The first step is how do you take that metric model and put it in like kind of the vantage point of something like 8 knot, or looking at how would you make a visualization using Augur data, whichever lens you would like to look at it from. I do it from, I think about it from 8 knot because I know that's the end goal of the visualizations that I'm working on, but I don't think that that has to be the limiting scope for some of these visualizations. And then the first step of that would be to build it in a notebook that would be contributed to this repository and to the folder. We have a folder for 8 knot visualization notebooks. And then the final step would be to take that pre-processing and then be get put into 8 knot. So what we're starting to look at is on the 8 knot side, having a more templated approach of here's a visualization issue, here's the check marks of what it is, and one of those is going to be a hyperlink to an issue in this repository that is just making said notebook, so making the visualization into the notebook. And so if there are new contributors that are coming in that want to do some analysis work, make a visualization, work with data, I think this is going to be a good opportunity for people to do that. And we are working on getting a very small Augur instance to be able to be accessible for people to work on this and work on 8 knot. It would be like pretty much the bare bones version of Augur, so like 10 repositories, but that is enough to to be able to build these visualizations because you can have that structure to be able to run 8 knot locally. So I don't have any like big action items. I'm saying this partially to keep myself accountable to start working towards making these issues, because I really want this to be a pretty just templated approach. So then if people, and because I think that the visualization side is something that there's a lot of people that are coming into this working group looking for something tangible to work on. And I feel like this is a really good scope for people who are trying to learn about data analysis. And so that's the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And to just second that, it really is a good learning experience, I think, to work on this because the way it not works, I mean, it uses Dash Plotly, which is one of the most common like Python visualization sort of frameworks. So the skills that you'd learn by doing this would be Python, Jupyter Notebooks, um,
Pandas
Dash
pre-processing.
Spotlight,
Yeah.
Pandas. It are really a lot of the skills that data scientists need. So I think this is a great project to get people involved in.
Yes, and I'm hoping, yeah, I have big hopes. This is this was a part of the reason why I wanted to move the notebooks over here. And to start, this is what I've been trying to work towards, and seeing people come in with interest of working on data science work. I think it also ties together different portions of chaos because really and we'll figure probably will be asking for some help on maybe documentation or like just because like I'm going to open up issues for all the visualizations that have been like opened up on 8 knot, but that's not like a limiting scope. If somebody wants to make a metric or visualization based off of a metric model or based off of anything from the rest of chaos, then that's fantastic. Or if they have an idea and they want to build from it, these are a set of starting points, but it's not limited. It doesn't mean that those are the only things. And as this develops, these are the type of things that I would like to document well for people so they can come in and work on what they want to work on. I think most people will probably want to start with a visualization that has a semi-defined scope because that's an easier thing to chew on for the first time. But there's so many I think there's a lot of opportunities here with what you can do with Augur data and trying to build within the visualizations. And I think that it is worth a discussion of whether in these notebooks or if we would want a different notebook if people are like, I really want to use Matplotlib. I'm like, I don't have a for sure answer for that. I would prefer people to use Plotly because that's what integrates directly within Dash, and the interactive nature of the Plotly visualizations is incredible in comparison to Matplotlib. It's like if you're doing a report, like the differences between, I can see why people like a static report, I can see, I mean, also like Matplotlib is like, I think the go to, it's what people think of when they think of Python data visualizations. I think that Dash Plotly is kind of a far second, but it is so much more interactive, even in a Jupyter notebook. I don't know if people have ever run Dash Plotly in a Jupyter notebook, but you get the interactive nature of the graphs in the notebook as well as like, so it actually, you're like what you see in 8 knot that's nothing, all the interactive nature of those graphs, we don't do that. If it's like a toggle, like that's like outside the graph, then that's us. But all of the things that make it to where you can select and deselect things, that's built in with a Plotly graph, and that's also the case if you just run one of those graphs in a notebook. Um, and so that's why I have drawn farther and farther towards Dash Plotly, is because especially like yesterday I went to go investigate some what I think might be some data inaccuracy or like with how our pre-processing is working with some of our graphs. And because I could do so much interactive nature in the graph itself, I could investigate that fully without having to do a single query or write a line of code. Um, so
That's super cool. Okay, so as you were talking about this, it occurred to me that we should probably start tracking this notebook visualizations as an actual project.
mhm.
So we should also probably do, if you have some time this week, is create an issue,
Okay.
um, and just create an issue that we're working on this as a project and encourage people to contribute to it. So if you could put some things in the issue about where people can go to contribute, that would be helpful because what we've found, and I think Ernest and Sal can second this, is like having it as an issue where we can point people and say, hey, if you're interested in contributing, here's an issue with some details. I think that's helped a lot with the Foundation Stats project.
Okay. I have a quick question because I don't know. My thought would be that I would be making the issues for each of the individual, like visual, for context, we have about like 10 visualization issues at least and 8 knot. And my thought is that I'd be opening an issue for each of those visualizations in the data science working group so then people could self-assign. And so would you think that you wanted the overarching issue before those sub issues, or because my brain works from sub issues and then creating the larger one because I don't, because if I create the larger one and they're like, where's the information? I'm like, I haven't gotten there yet. Um,
I
so
would say do it in whatever order is most
okay,
comfortable for you.
okay,
I would just make sure that they all get labeled as project, and then when you can create it like you can call it umbrella issue or something like that. I think we have another one that's called something similar. where you have like an overarching issue that maybe points to some of the other issues. Or if you create some of the issues in 8 knot, you could create an umbrella issue in the working group and then point to some of the things that people can work on in the
That's
8
my
knot repo.
plan.
Okay,
Is
cool.
that each visual, so it would be like a check, pretty much like a to-do list for the 8 knot one, because there's like steps that you need to go through. Yeah, recommend. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what Sal mentioned in chat
Yeah.
makes yeah.
And so
Yeah,
that's
because
probably
Sal's
those are the
Sal's
type of,
point Sal makes a good point. These master issues are really great for orienting people.
and I think that's going to be the stuff that I'll probably want to get some feedback on, because I'm too close to this and have been working on some of these things for way too long to really
Hmm.
like understand the vantage point of a first time person. Luckily, Kaio on our team is supposed to be working on a new visualization and kind of going through this entire cycle. And so I'm hoping through that we kind of start to learn, even though he's worked on the software engineering side, he hasn't done any of like the data visualization work. And so he's still somewhat of a new vision into this. The other thing that I'm a little bit worried about is is the timeline of us. Like, I know we want to have a Augur instance that is available, but whether that lands in our and like the Red Hat infrastructure or Sean's infrastructure. And so that's something that I'm wanting to be careful about. Of I know that if I put these things out there that it's going to get attention, and I want to make sure that it's ready for attention. Um,
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
and so that's like
Yeah.
that's where all of my brain is going. So I'll probably not create the like larger like getting started on this issue until at the very least the kind of templated that we have it a little bit more like, hey, here's the to-dos from the 8 knot side, because I also want it to be clear that if people just want to make a visualization notebook and that's all that they want to do, that's fantastic.
Hmm.
Somebody else can take over um on the like 8 knot side super easily if they want to be like, the that's kind of the purpose of the breakup, is that it makes it to where you can think about it from a data pre-processing and visualization standpoint, and you can think about it from an 8 knot standpoint. The needs for the Augur instance is just a bare bones, the same that what we would need for 8 knot, for a contributor to be able to just like a startup. We want to have a 8 knot instance with a couple of repositories that just has collection across the board. So then when they query to a table for a repository, there is data. So it's like the smallest, I think that it out of the box Augur real like maybe one other repository if you want to have like a more like populated one, like maybe like Rook or just some medium-sized repository. One of them would probably be good just to have something that is more representative of a larger project. But yeah, if you have any other questions, Adrian, please ask. But we're talking bare. Yeah. Because that's my hope is that the one for the working group and the one for like we don't need multiple for the different repositories. We just need one. So then new contributors have a way to start working on these things.
Cool. And there is so
Yeah.
what I might do, there is a data science project proposal template for an issue that's super high level that basically just says we have this project. Do you want me to just create something using that and just point people to the directory and say we have, more details coming? Or do you want to
Yeah,
even
more
break it?
details coming is great.
Okay. And
Anything,
then you
yeah,
can you can update it whenever you're ready and you can add whatever details, point people to whatever.
yeah, I probably am gonna put. I was gonna see with because I was looking at the labels, in the notebook, and so you have it under project. I don't. We can kind of figure out in time if a more specific like project like like a visualization label would be useful. But I was gonna maybe propose a block, like I don't know if a block is the right word, but I was thinking about if as I'm opening these smaller issues to be able to signal to people that they're like not that like it's a maybe like a work in like because I don't even of trying to be able to verbalize people like, hey, I'm still working on this. I'm yeah, because I'm concerned about people getting it, which I want people to get excited and want to work on it, but it's going to take me a little bit to get everything set up for the first time. And I want to be able to signal to people that this is coming and we're working on it. It just doesn't have all the details yet.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. I will do that. I'll create that, just the basic thing. And then yeah, we can create more labels. We can,
Yeah.
whatever makes sense for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna
Cool.
think about the right like wording because my hope is that it's something that is concise enough to like kind of get. I guess I can just do work in progress and do like the sub details. I mean, like this issue is still getting the details necessary for somebody to be able to work on it.
Hmm.
Um, I might do that.
Okay, cool. Anything else on the visualization notebooks? Okay, cool. Well, we only have about 10 more minutes. So, are there other things that people want to put on the agenda for future meetings?
I would say probably in I guess next meeting I'm out of office, but
Okay.
kind of in the future, I'd say for me, I probably am gonna have updates kind of indefinite. Like I guess this is what it falls under the project. I think I will have updates most likely indefinitely around the visualizations, and more of just like, hey, this is where we're at, getting feedback from people of, hey, was this a like a system that was followable, like what details that you need. Me looking for a lot of feedback on just docs. Written communication is not my specialty.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. We'll add that to the project updates section. I also, Matt, just a note. I think we should treat the cost stuff the same way.
Hmm.
And just talk about it as a kind of as a project within the data science working group. And so we'll just do updates on it in the meetings if you have an update. If you don't, that's cool too. And then I'll also create an umbrella issue, like a project proposal issue as well, that will point people to the directory that I create. And so then you can update that as needed with more details.
Like drop a README in the folder.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'll create an issue, and I'll create the folder, and then in the issue I'll link to the folder.
Okay.
But then you can do PRs against that folder and add like a README, add the data set, add whatever you think you need.
Okay.
But then we'll just put it on the agenda every week as a project that we talk about, so that people know that they can get involved. And that'll be a great way if there are some, so, one of the things the Foundation Stats project has been doing is basically filling in missing data about Apache projects. And a lot of that is actually kind of manually going out and finding that missing data. So, if we realize that there's some data that we're missing as a part of the cost data set, we can create specific issues and maybe get people more involved in that project, helping us track down, missing data.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
Good
I'd say
point.
across the board, I'm noticing that the population, like putting good details into your issues, I don't really know how people are finding repositories at such a and like issues at such a rapid pace because I'm seeing this like across not just here, not just in Augur, but in a lot of different repositories. Um, Clear scoped issues are getting worked on. Like whether it's whether it's but even not even good for things that aren't labeled good first issues are getting worked on, even not just good first issues. So the time spent putting a little bit of extra detail, I think, is really coming to fruition of people outside contributors wanting to work on it.
Cool. Awesome. And I saw Sal's note in chat about adding something about new trainers and onboarding / sponsorship. So we'll talk about that in the next meeting. Should be good. The only reminder that I have, if other people have reminders, feel free to add them there. The CFP for Open Source Summit North America was extended to February 15th. So if you haven't gotten your talk proposals in and you would like to go to Minneapolis, feel free to submit a talk proposal. We'd love to have talks about chaos data at these conferences. So, okay. Cool. Anything else before we wrap it up in our last 5 minutes?
Nope, looking
No?
good.
Okay, cool. Well, I give everybody 5 minutes back, and it was great chatting with you all, and take care. Bye, everybody.